Hello everybody and welcome to my studio. My name is Lonna. I am an acrylic artist, so thank you so much for stopping by. Well, today's video is going to be a fun one. I had a great time creating this one. A little bit different for me, but I really enjoyed it. Let's take a look at it. It's this one. I've titled A Glimpse of Fall. I love how the background over here is blurred out, and the focal point is right here, this one tree that's split, and we can see the leaves that are just starting to change on this tree. It is just some beautiful color. Now this one I painted with DecoArt Traditions paints because I love the pigment in these paints, but you can use DecoArt Americana paints or any acrylic paints that you have. I'm painting on a 9x12 canvas panel, so let's grab our paints and supplies and let's get painting A Glimpse of Fall. Okay, to start on this project, I have my 9x12 primed canvas. This is a 9x12. It's a Master's Touch. It came from Hobby Lobby. And I am going to apply a coat of chalky gesso onto it so I can get just a little bit more of a smooth finish. So I'm just going to take my damp 2-inch foam roller and dip it into my chalky gesso here and just apply a coat of this onto my canvas and allow it to dry completely. And then we will start our painting process from when this gesso is dry. You do not have to apply gesso, chalky gesso or any gesso to your canvas if you do not want to. I just want a little bit smoother canvas here. So just a nice even coat of this and let it dry, and then we'll start in on our design. Alright, my canvas is dry. I'm going to lightly sand it with a paper bag. You can use a very fine grit sandpaper as well, but I just want to knock down any high spots and give it a nice smooth texture. That's all it takes to prepare a already primed canvas if you don't like as much texture on it. This is going to make it similar to a watercolor canvas, a little bit more smoother texture. You could apply 2 or 3 coats of gesso, those nice thin layers of gesso like I did with my first one, and get a really nice smooth canvas here. So that is your choice right there. Alright, so the paints I'm going to be using are the DecoArt Traditions paints. They come in tubes like this. I still have some in bottles, so I will be using those. But this is a great pigmented paint. I love it. It has gorgeous color. Just paints up beautifully. So I have on my palette here Carbon Black, Titanium White, Warm White, and Phthalo Blue. You could use an ultramarine blue as well, or some other blue that you might have. Let's see if I have another blue out here. Ultramarine. Yeah, those are the only 2 that I pulled. Cerulean blue would work. You could mix just a tiny little bit of black with it. So I would just say go with whatever blue that you have. We're not going to need very much. I've put out way more of that blue than I'm actually going to need, because we're just going to get ready to paint the undercoat of our painting. The stuff that will be pushed so far into the background will have so much stuff on top of it that you won't see it, but we need this undercoat. So I've got a 1-inch filbert brush. It is damp, and I'm ready to start painting. So I'm going to load with some white here and get a little bit of that black. I've got way more black than I need as well. I recommend just putting out a little bit of paint at a time and going from there. I do want this a little bit darker. For our left side of our canvas is going to be darker than the right side. Let's grab just a little bit more black in there. And you may have to apply this background a couple of times. I'll put a little bit more weight down here at the bottom, a little bit darker. Pick up just a tiny bit of blue And we can work some of that in there onto this side. I'm going to get some water and just spritz the edge of my palette here so I can grab a drop of water here and there as I need it. I don't know if I can get my palette and my canvas on camera at the same time. A little bit more blue in there. If you're using the Traditions paints, one coat will probably give you a nice background here. I'm going to grab some white and a little bit of warm white and start working this in. I really don't want to have any of the canvas texture pulling through on this, but if that's something that you like, then go for it. I just picked up a little bit more warm white for over here. Take a little bit more warm white down here and grab a tiny little bit of blue, a little bit of that gray. We don't want that to be a bright blue in there. This is all background stuff, so have a little tiny bit of moisture in your paint so that you can keep the paint nice and moist. Blend it out without lifting paint. This is background, so this is just background undercoating stuff. I'm going to wipe my brush out and very gently tickle blend so that I'm not lifting paint. Okay, and this does not have to look beautiful or perfect in any way because it's the background, okay? background, okay? So really one layer should get you good, especially with the Tradition. So we're gonna let this dry and then we're gonna start building on top of this. Okay, mine is completely dry. Didn't have all my lights on a while ago, so I hope you were able to see it. So you can see how just rough it is. There are some places where I didn't completely cover the canvas, but not to worry. Not to worry, because this can be as rough looking as you need to be. Okay, so I'm going to be using some stiffer bristled brushes. These are an encaustic brush by Dynasty, a little bit stiffer brush. You can get them at the brush guys. Let's see, they only have 3 sizes. They have 3/4, well, they have 1 inch, 3/4, and 1/2 inch, I believe. Let me check that real quick to make sure. These are called hot wax brushes, but they are great for painting. So yes, they come in a 1 inch oval, a 1/2 inch oval, and a 3/4 inch oval. You could also get an angle, 1/2 inch angle, a 1/4 inch angle, a 3/4 inch angle, and a 1/2 inch wave angle. But these are the ones that I like to use, so we're going to use them. I'm going to use it dry. I'm not going to get it wet, and I'm going to start over here on the left side. Now again, we are working on background stuff here, not trying to overload the background, but we want some stuff that really pushes into the background. So I'm going to load my brush with some black. Just work some of that into those bristles. A little bit of blue. Blue is not going to show up too well because that black is going to take over, but we will see a little bit of that blue on there. And we're going to start over here on the side and just begin tapping and creating some texture back here that we can build some layers onto. So just keep loading as you need to. And I'm going to touch, I always like to touch my paper towel because I feel like it takes off a lot of stuff that I don't need. And again, this is background underlayment point, our focal point is right here in the center of this. So I just want to put some of this textury stuff back here that is going to just melt into the background. This is just our first layer of stuff into the background. This should be a super easy process here of just laying in. I'm going to grab a little bit more blue as I go into that blue area. And lightly begin tapping. That's why I said don't worry about our first layer that we put on, because it's all going to push into the background. And turn your brush this way and that way. That way you're not just making like a row of the same mark over and over again. I'm working the brush so that I'm running out of paint, so it's getting lighter and lighter as I go out here. We're going to come down to about here. We're going to be putting other layers on top of this. This again is just our beginning layer. So now I'm going to load in some blue and grab a little bit of white, still some black. I just want a little bit lighter blue. Tap my paper towel, and we're going to start putting some of this. The more that you use this brush, the better it is. Now that I've loaded more paint into this, it's laying paint on a little bit nicer. Alright, I'm going to grab a little bit more blue and white. Our lighter side is over here. And just that right there that I mixed right there. Tap, tap, tap my paper towel. And again, this is background underlayment stuff. Don't really stress out about how it's looking. We're just tapping a layer in here. If you don't tap onto your paper towel, when you start onto your surface, be sure and tap just very lightly. Don't push real hard. You'll get hard spots like that one right there. I pushed too hard when I first came over here, or maybe after I'd been doing it just a little bit, and so it really left that hard mark. I'm not worried about it right now because it's under stuff. Now down here I want to put a little bit smoother, and this is just that blue mix that I had on my brush. It's got a little bit of white in it. We'll be lightening all this up. This is like a little grassy area that we can sort of see, but overall all this stuff will blend into the background. Okay, I'm just running out of paint in my brush, just letting it go wherever, scrubbing it in there. Get as much of the paint out of my brush as I can to get our first our second under layer of paint. And now we're ready to build on top of this layer. We're going to be putting some darker colors back in here first for some deep areas back in these trees, and then we'll come in and start adding some light colors, and we're going to add another color into our palette when we do that. So we want to make sure that this is dry, good and dry. And I've got a couple places that are still a little wet, but not so wet that I will lift the paint. So we're going to get ready to apply a next layer on here. I'm not going to wash my brush out. I probably will just take it to my paper towel and try and scrub a little bit, but I do need some of that darker to go back in here, so I'm not going to worry about scrubbing it out yet. All right, we've got this layer is pretty dry. So my brush, I did not clean it out. Okay, but I do need some darker color back in here, so I have moved my paint to a larger palette here. I'm going to take some of the black and some of the blue and make a dark blue here. I've added a new color to the palette here, and I'll tell you about that color in just a minute. But back in here, I'm going to need some dark colors, and I just want to put some darkness, just kind of scrub it in. I really want it dark down here. We're going to create our deep shadowy areas back in our trees a little bit. And I'd rather have this back in there now as to try and build up on top of it. And you can just really put it randomly wherever you think it would look nice. I want some dark stuff kind of down in here. I want it really dark over here, so I'm just going to scrub in, pick up a little bit more of the carbon black and scrub it in. Back over here in this corner, keeping this much darker. This brush is losing bristles because I'm scrubbing with it. Okay, get a little bit darker up in here. And I want just a tiny bit darker through here, back in there, and a little bit through here. Okay, so a lot of this through here, when we put our our big tree in the center, we won't see, but we can darken up some of these areas back in here as well. We're going to put some lighter stuff in here. But this is just establishing our really dark stuff. Okay, I think we're looking pretty good for some dark stuff going on back there. So now I think I'll try and remove some of this paint out of my brush onto a dry paper towel. I'm just going to scrub some of this paint out. It's okay on this next layer if it continues to blend with my paint. So we're going to go into some of this green. This is teal green. Okay. I've also spritzed my palette over here with some water if I need some water. So I'm going to grab my green and load it into my brush. A little bit of phthalo blue with it. And we're going to start putting some of this in, a little bit more green in there. This again is background stuff, and we may not see much of this color. I'm going to have to add a little tiny bit of warm white to it. And I'm just going to add a little warm white here and mix a little bit more green and blue in there. I may have to add a little tiny bit of black. So I'll just go up into this color here. Kind of blend those two together right there. And we'll start just kind of tapping some of this in here. A little bit more green, a little bit more light color because I'm not seeing it yet. Alright, there I can see a little bit of that color. Let me zoom in just a little bit. You can see a little bit of that green starting to show through there. So as we move over here to the dark, we'll probably be able to see it a little bit more. And we'll just tap some of this in here. Just turn your brush every which way. We don't want everything to be the same. Okay, so we're creating a little bit of a foliage look in here. A little bit more green, a little bit more white, a little bit more blue, and a tiny bit of black in there. This is going to be a little bit lighter, a little bit more on the blue side. So we started out with a little bit more of the green, okay? And we're going to work a little bit of the blue in through here. Trying to start creating some texture on these shadowy areas that we've created. just continue all the way across, working in some of this. We don't want to cover up all of our dark stuff, but we do want to start pushing it into the background a little bit. So just start tapping a little bit over some of those dark areas. Don't cover them up completely. We got to have some of that. You got to see that. Okay, so that's kind of our next layer in there. I'm going to go ahead and tap a little bit of this back in here. Again, this is going to push back into the background there. I've got a little bit of that lighter mix where I added a little bit of white onto it. So I'll tap a little bit of that over here. And again, we won't see a lot of this in here. But you know, you need to know how to completely finish something. If you decide once you've painted in your background trees, you're happy with it. You don't want to put anything on top of it or in front of it. So you know, just work your values in through here. I want to put a little bit of the green color, add a little bit more to that mix, and we're going to put some of this down here and keep it a little more smooth down here. And a little bit of white into it. Green and warm white, actually, not white. And we're going to tap this over here and kind of scrub it. And get these two to kind of meet together right there. And begin creating some of this grassy area right there. Okay. You can come over this way a little bit more green. Alright, so that is our next layer, just tapping in. We used the teal green, some phthalo blue, and some warm white, and just a tiny little bit of that mix that is phthalo blue and black. So we kind of started out with phthalo blue mostly, a little tiny bit of black and some warm white. Then we added our greens in, more blues, more warm whites as we got lighter across the way. Okay, we put in our little dark areas first, and I still have some paint on my brush, so I'm going to try and work that out. Just creating a little bit of lighter values. We're going to continue to use this brush, okay, creating our background stuff here. I want to get a little bit darker over here, so I'm going to grab some of the black and blue mix into my brush and kind of just scumble that through there. I need it to be a little bit right along this edge, a little bit darker. Maybe just, ooh, that's a lot of black. Wipe some of that out of my brush. I don't want it to be that black. A little bit darker through there. We want this all to just be kind of hazy in the background when we get done here. So I want to bring my dark color down here a little bit onto the grass. This is a really shadowy area down here. Okay, I've still got a little bit of that black in my brush, so I just want to pick up a few little bit darker areas. Just kind of scrub it in. Okay, we're going to move on to our next layer now. Clean a little bit of the paint out of my brush, dry paper towel. Okay, we're still going to use these same colors that we have here. We may introduce another color. We're going to add some lines in here to create some tree trunks back in there. We're just going to take some carbon black and thin it with some water and create an inky consistency. You can add a little bit of blue in there if you want. If you're in over here in the dark area, we probably won't apply any. We're probably going to keep them through here, and then we'll be layering some more leaves and things on top of them, but we are going to create a little bit more of a thicker tree right here. So I'm just going to put these randomly throughout this background, mostly from just left of the center to the right side, just creating some little tree trunk stuff going on here. We'll cover some of this up. Some of it we won't end up seeing, but some of it we will, so it's going to help give that illusion of trees, and they don't all have to be straight. Some can be angled and going in different directions. So just a few in there. Now right about here, I think I want to create a little bit bigger of a tree trunk. Okay, so I'm going to add a tiny little bit of the warm white in here, just to create a little bit lighter color that maybe we can see right here. And we're just going to create a little bit fatter of a tree trunk right here. Again, we're not going to see this probably at all. We could go with a bigger brush. Don't use such a small brush. You just have to work too hard when you use such small ones. Okay, so I am definitely going to switch to a little bit bigger brush here. Go with a flat brush, I think. I'm going to grab a 10. Wake it up in some water. Grab my paint that I have here, and we'll just bring this tree up through here. Just a tree that's right there. Maybe you want a little bit fatter one right here. Again, we may not see that one at all. And maybe back in here we can have a little bit of a little bit bigger one. Back in there, just creating some stuff that pushes way back. We're just not going to see much of this stuff, so don't especially over here. Don't get carried away over here, because our big tree is going right here, right there. Okay, so I think that looks pretty good. I'm going to grab a little bit of blue and a little bit of warm white and some of that black, and I'm just going to tap some of this on here. Maybe a little tiny bit more warm white, and move some of that paint from my brush and just tap this along in here on these bigger trees that we can see a little bit more of. Just put a little bit of a variance of color, I guess, is what we're doing right there. Okay, now down here at the bottom of this one, we want it to be darker, so I'm just going to take this same brush and load a little bit of black in it and just tap some of that in there. I'm going to take my finger and blend it out. Again, that's all going to push into the background. I want some of this back in here as well. A little bit more black in there. You might want to use an older brush to do this so that you're not damaging a good brush by scrubbing it onto your canvas there. We're just creating a little bit of shadowy areas in here. Grab a little bit of water, and you just want some shadow stuff. It's like bushy stuff up by those trees. And then it's shadow coming off of them. So we want this all to kind of come together right down through here. Okay, so now we've established a little bit more depth in there. You can really see it coming together now and looking really good. We're creating a really pretty background. So I'm going to wash this brush out. We're going to go back to our stiff bristled brush and put another layer. I think we're going to do 2 more layers on this background, and then we're going to put our big tree in. So let's grab our stiff brush. We're going back to our brush here. We're going to add a new color in. We're going to add in Hansa Yellow Medium. I'll put a little bit of that out. Alright, so we want to start creating some lighter stuff through here. So I'm going to start with my phthalo blue, my teal green, and I'm going to put a little bit of that Hansa Yellow in there. That's pretty dark, so I'm going to add a little bit of black and a little bit of white. Or warm white, not white. And create a little bit more yellow. We'll see how this looks. This looks like a pretty bright green, so it might be too bright. I may need to add a little bit more blue in here. I think I will add just a tiny bit more of the phthalo blue in there. I think that's going to be a little bit too bright. So yeah, we'll tone it down with a little bit of phthalo blue. Let me put some more phthalo blue on my palette here. And then we'll start tapping in and see if this color is going to show up. Again, over in here, we're not going to see much of this, but we do want to see some of it. So just begin tapping a little bit here and there. We're going to add a little bit lighter blue in through here, I think, because I think it needs it. The green is not showing up too much, so let's add a little tiny bit of warm white to our mix and lightly tap this in. And now I can see it on my canvas pretty well. There, you can see it a little bit better. So we're creating a nice layer of this color. This is a darker green for over here on the left side. Okay, so we will get lighter as we go across, but see how it's already pushing all those other colors back. I love how this happens. It just is beautiful. Alright, put a little bit through here, a little bit down in here. I'm going to mix a little bit more. That is our teal green, our Hansa Yellow, our phthalo blue, and a little bit of warm white, a little bit of black if you feel like you need it, but I think the phthalo blue will darken it nicely. A little tiny bit of warm white to just lighten that green. I'm going to tap, tap, tap on my... So this is a little bit lighter. I think you can see it a little bit more. I believe I added a little bit more of my warm white to it. Now right through here I want to see quite a bit of this color, of this lighter green color. Maybe just a tiny bit more yellow in there. I'm going to put some of this in the grassy area down here. Down through here, I'm just going to kind of tap it and scoot it around. Over here, I want to make it a little bit brighter over here. So I'm going to keep that a little bit darker. I'm probably going to darken that just a little bit because that's still just a little bit bright for me. But let's take some of this brighter green and add it up in here. And creating these kind of distance, blurred out, far away from you tree areas is very easy, just by tapping in layers of colors. Don't let it get muddy. Don't put too much of your next color on, so that you completely lose any color that's underneath it. Get some of those bristles off. This is a brand new brush, so it's losing a few bristles. I got a little bit more of the yellow in my brush because this area right through here, the sun is really hitting this area through here. So I want it to be a little bit brighter green. So as I move across, I'll be picking up more and more of the yellow to create a little bit brighter green as I come across here. We're going to go back into that blue-gray in just a minute, and work some of that in. I want a little bit more of the yellow for down here. Just kind of tapping and scrubbing that in. Maybe just a tiny bit over there, but we're keeping this area a little bit lighter through here because the sun is hitting that area just a little bit more than it's hitting anywhere else. So I'm going to go a little bit more yellow right in through here. And I'll probably have to add a little bit more of that on top of there. We're going to come in with some white in a little bit. I just want to create a few little more brighter areas in through here. And where the sun is kind of catching it a little bit more. It's really catching that area the most. So now I want to try and remove some of that green out of there, out of my brush. Again, dry paper towel. I'm just going to squeeze out the paint. I do have a lot of paint in my brush right now. And then once I do that, I'm going to scrub, scrub, scrub and remove some of that green out of there. It's okay if it's still in there, but I want to try and go to a lighter color. If you have another one of these brushes, and I do, but I want to show you how you can just keep moving along using the same brush. And don't feel like you have to have a ton of brushes. Although these are fabulous brushes, I highly recommend that you get some if you have the means to do so. So we're going to add a blue-gray color on here and then our brightest color. And I think that will finish up our background. We can move on to our main tree. Okay, we're going to now add some of the blue-gray in there. So we're going to take some of our black, a little bit of black here, a lot of phthalo blue, and I'm going to add titanium white this time. A little bit more black. I want this to be a blue-gray color. A little bit more blue and some more white. Tiny bit more black in there. Okay, it's a black blue. I'm going to see if this is going to show up. If it doesn't show up, I'm going to add a little bit more of the white in there. But I want to put this back in here. Yep, needs a little bit more white or warm white. I've been using warm white mostly, but now I want to try and get a little bit brighter stuff in here. So I'm going to keep adding just titanium white to it until I get a nice light color that we can see. A light blue-gray. So just add a little bit more titanium white and tap onto. All right, there we go. We can see that now. So we're going to create some light values. This area down here is really getting some light coming on it. I'm going to come right down into the grass down here. Okay, we have our white that's going to go on top. We want a little bit of this coming up through here. Remember, we're going all different directions with our brush so that we can create more texture. Okay, I'm just kind of bouncing around the painting, finding my light areas. We know that the sun is hitting more over here, and some of that in the background back there is getting a little bit more light on it. We're going to come in with our white, okay, in a little bit, but right now we're just using this gray stuff. I want to put a little bit over here. I think I'll have to add a little bit more black to it so that this isn't so incredibly bright over here. Just tap a little bit over in here. You can kind of blur it out with your finger if it's too bright and in your face. Keep it pushed back in there. A little bit through here. Definitely want to put some of this down here. This is really pretty bright through here. I'm going to have to add some yellow down in there because that needs to be brighter. A little bit more white into the mix because that was our darker gray mix that I used over here, our gray-blue mix. So I just added a little bit more white, and we'll tap some of this color. Just find your bright spots, and right through here, it's a lot of brightness right through here. That's really catching some light in there. Around that green area. A little bit more white in there. I'm trying to create the look a little bit more of branches and, you know, foliage stuff. So I just picked up a tiny bit more white and blended it into the mix. Now you can go to a much smaller brush, one of these encaustic brushes if you like. I like using the bigger one. I can manipulate it a little bit more and put a little bit more in where I would like it to be. That'll probably be covered up by our big tree. So we're concentrating most of the light source over here. I'm going to grab a little bit more white and put a little bit. This is still that blue-gray mix. I'm just tapping in a little bit more over here. And I'll go down through here a little bit. Okay, I think that's looking pretty good. Our final little highlight on here is going to be white, but I'm going to continue to use this brush. I'm just going to clean it out so that it's not a stark white to begin with. So this is still just the brush. I flipped it over and there's a little bit more white on the other side of the brush, so I could put a little bit more detail in here. But still, it's pushed to the back. I'm not laying so much in that it's covering up everything. Okay, we still have some dark areas in there. I could put a little bit dark back in there. Anytime you feel like you've lost some of your dark, I'm just going to grab a little bit of the black in my brush and maybe tap in a little bit of stuff that maybe you feel like you've lost some of your darker shadowy stuff back in here. Okay, we still want that in there. It's important to create the depth in our painting. It's very important. these trees are just not our focal point, so we don't have to worry too much about them. I'm going to go down here because this should actually be really dark right through here, coming over this way. This is kind of our horizon line here, and this is grassy stuff here, so we don't really want to see too much of it coming up so big that it looks like tall grasses, because this is pretty flat open area here. Alright, I'm going to put a little bit beside this tree, just kind of scrub it on there. It's going to help push that tree into the background, and then just finish tapping. Alright, just darken up that green right there just a little bit. And then this area is going to be lighter. So I think I'm going to take a little bit of my yellow real quick, wipe my brush off, and just grab some yellow. That's really going to muddy up in there with that dark color. So let's see if I can get a little bit lighter through here. Again, I want this to be more flat. I don't want it to look like tall grasses. I want it to stay more like a flat area. Okay, I think that's going to help a lot. Still looks like grassy areas, but we're going to add a little bit of just a tiny little highlight of white in there. I'm going to put a little bit more of this yellow back up in here. This area just needs to have more yellow. So just kind of look around your painting and see where you want to add a little bit more of that bright yellow back in there. A little bit through there because it's really the brightest area through there. I'm going to put up just a tiny bit up through here and a little bit over here. Okay, those are the areas where the sun's really catching it. So when we come in with our white, those are really going to pop on there. Okay, so I don't want to use, well, I was going to use this brush for white. I think I'll go ahead and use it for just the first layer of white. So again, I'm going to clean it out as best I can. The yellow in there is fine. I don't want all those dark colors mixing with my white. Okay, so we're going to now apply some white in our brush. So I've wiped this brush out best I can. I'm going to get a little bit of the titanium white. Now, it's not pure white. I don't know if you can see that there on my palette. There's still a tiny bit of blue and stuff in my brush, which is fine. Tap onto my paper towel, get a little bit of that off the tips, and we're going to come in here and create some really bright areas. This is where the sun is hitting the most on the trees right here. So we're going to tap some of this in through here and through here, a little bit through here. Just find your places that you want to create a little bit of, move your brush around. You know, we don't want everything to stay the same. We want some of this white down here on the grass, but remember we want it to be, this is more flat, so come down here and just tap a little bit of that in there. I think we're going to wash over that with some yellow because that definitely needs to be brighter. And I think back here is looking pretty good. We don't need a ton of this, so don't feel like you have to put so much white in there. Okay, this is just a little bit of a highlight. Okay, I really feel like I need to tap some blue back in there. I feel like I've lost my blue, so I'm going to grab some phthalo blue, mix it with that white, maybe a little bit of that black gray mix. Not too much, just a little bit. Just needs that little touch of blue back in there. So this is where you have to be careful. You have to just do such light stuff here on these last few layers, because you will just completely muddy up your painting and completely cover up everything that you have done if you start putting too much in there. Okay? So that looks pretty good. I'm happy with that. I am going to take my flat brush though, a little bit of water, a little bit of yellow, and a little bit more water, and kind of wash this over this area. I want this area to be more yellow, and I don't think my underneath paint was dry, so it just kind of sucked it all in there. Grab a little bit of white on my brush, and we'll just lighten this up over here just a little bit. Okay, that looks pretty good. So it almost looks like a hill, but it really should be a more flat area, but we're going to go with it. It's pretty wet there because I put that wash of color on there, so it's kind of muddying up there. All right, I think that is going to very nicely finish out this background. I feel like the background took a lot of steps to show you, because I wanted to take my time and show you how to do it well, but really when you're doing it on your own, it should move so quickly. So now you see how dark it is over here, and it gradually gets lighter over here, so that we can see all of our brightest areas. I'm gonna take that down just a little bit. So right through here, that's the bright stuff, okay? And just feel free to continue tapping with your colors, not overdoing, because you don't want to be muddying anything. This is a little bit of that yellow. Just put it right there on top. Okay, that looks much better. That little bit of brighter yellow. I still had some blue in my brush, so it made it this kind of bright green. Looks good. Happy with that. And I'll just tap a little bit down here. I really want more yellowy looking down here. Okay, that looks much better. All right, so see how you can just add just some tiny little taps in there, and you get such a beautiful subtle. I'm seriously just leaving small amounts of paint here. Just tiny little bits of paint. That's all I'm doing. Okay, I think that looks great. We're going to take this brush now and clean it, because we're going to add our main tree in here, our focal point, and create that beautiful focal point. I cannot wait to paint this. I think it's going to be awesome. Okay, we are ready to add our big tree in here. If your background is good like you like it, I like mine. I think it looks fabulous. I love how it turned out. So I'm extremely happy with the background. So we want our big tree in here. So I want to leave a little bit of room over here to put a little leaf in. So I'm going to start my tree right about here, and I think I want my tree, it's going to be like 2 parts of a tree. I don't want to cover that one up, but I want to be close to it, so I'm going to put a mark there. Okay, so that's where our tree is going to start. Now this is a big tree, and I'm going to draw it in. Your packet will have the line drawing, so if you are working from the packet, you can just take your line drawing and put it in. This one has a big hump that comes here, and then this one comes down about here. Pull my pencil out. About there, and then this one is going to go up this direction. Okay, and it gets wider, much wider at the top than it is down here. But if that is not appealing to you, then you can definitely straighten it out more and change it. It's your tree. Make it however you want. I'm just drawing mine in. We're going to have some branches coming off, going up this way, some thinner branches, and one down here that's going to have some other stuff coming off of it, where we're going to put our leaves. And I'm going to have a little one coming off here that's going to have some branches on it. We've got a really big knot in the tree here that we are going to, it's like where a limb of the tree broke off at one point. So we're going to have that. This tree is going to have lots of character and really some fun stuff, I think, on it, some texture. I'm hoping we can get that texture in there. Okay, so for our tree, we want it to really be dark, so we're going to put out some of that carbon black. And I got me a new palette here. To leave and run some errands, so my paint all dried out, so I just freshened up my palette. So we want some black. This is carbon black with the traditions. Now if you're just using DecoArt Americana, it would just be lamp black. Let's grab some, I'm going to put some warm white out and some of our phthalo blue. These are the colors that we're going to be using on the tree trunk. Oh goodness, paint everywhere. Grab some phthalo blue. Let me wipe the paint off of this because I just got paint everywhere. Everywhere. Alright, where is my blue? Phthalo blue. Yep, there it is. Okay. I'll put some of that out. And we might put a tiny bit of the green out. I'm not really sure if we'll use any of that teal green, but let's put some out. Now, we're just concentrating on the tree trunk right now. We're not going to worry anything about the leaves yet. I want to draw some leaves in a little bit, but for now, I want just some you know what I'm trying to say here. I'm going to grab a bigger flat brush. So I'm going to get a size 20 flat. You can use a 16 or 14. And then I'm also going to have on hand a 12 flat, possibly use. I don't know if I'm going to use that one or not, so I'll set it to the edge. I'm going to use this bigger one to get our tree based in, so we can get it based in quickly. And we're just going to make it a solid color. Then we'll be adding texture onto it. So I'm going to take my black, my carbon black. Let's grab a little phthalo blue, mix a little of that in there, and we're just going to base this in very, very quickly. Black and blue. A little bit of moisture in your brush. And we're just going to put this big tree right in here. And you just make these two beautiful tree trunks that are together. This one is the knot, so it's a little bit some character in our tree trunk on this side, and then it still pushes out that way and then comes down fairly straight down here. Okay, that looks pretty good for our base coat on our tree trunk. There we go. Hold it up like that so you can see it. I might get my easel out real quick and put it on it so it holds it up so that you can see the entire tree a little bit better with no glare coming from my lights. So let me grab my easel. All right, I've got my easel out. Got it up on my easel. I'm going to quickly dry this with a heat tool. Now we're going to start adding some fun stuff on here. This is a Ranger heat tool. And you can get it probably at, I know you can get it at cdwood.com. So you can check that out. Okay, so on this tree, this knot here has a lot of stuff going on with it, but for now I just want to basically put in the shape of it right here. This tree comes down right about here where the tree kind of separates, and so it's got this big area right here where a tree used to be, or a limb used to be. So we want to paint that in with a gray. So we're going to take some of our black and some of our warm white. You can use titanium white if you don't have warm white, because we're just making a gray color here. So make a medium to dark colored gray, and we're just going to paint this in. You don't have to worry too much about the exact color, because we've got layers we're going to put on top of this. But we're going to fill that in. And we're going to have a lot of stuff going on that. We need to let that area dry. Now I've grabbed some, not cleaned that brush very good, some Mezzaluna brushes. Now these are stiff as well. They're not as stiff, boy that's still really wet. They're not as coarse, I guess, as that one. They're a little bit softer. But we're going to use these to add some texture onto our tree. So I'm going to use the, this is the large size. Any kind of little stiff type brush will do. It doesn't have to be, you know, exactly like this one. We're also going to need a little round brush to add some fun stuff on here with. So I'm going to spritz my palette here with some water. Move this over just a little bit. Make sure you can kind of see my palette in case I do some crazy mixing. All right, so this tree has a lot of growth on it, like mossy type stuff, but it's not going to be green. It's going to be grays because this part of the tree is really in the shadowy part. So we're going to take some of, I'm using this brush dry, and I'm just going to mix a little bit more of the gray stuff here. Not quite as light as that. Okay, let me grab another paper towel here. Heat tool. And we're going to do the same thing like we did in the background. So we've got our brush dry. I'm going to tap a little bit off, and then we're just going to start tapping some of this and creating some stuff on the tree. I really want texture, so I'm going to load more into my brush, and we're going to start putting some of this stuff on our tree. Now we're going to obviously be making it even more textured than this. Again, you know how we started in the background. We got to have our base coat, and then we work up from there. So we've got our first base coat with just the color. So now we're going to begin tapping some of this color in here. we'll use our round brush to add some finer details in here. Let me mix some more. I want it to be a dark gray, not a super light gray, okay? We're definitely going to have to darken that up. It's pretty bright, but kind of be on the corner if you want some little finer stuff in there, instead of using the brush flat like this or up on the chisel point like this, okay? So we're just going to work our way down around this. There'll be a little bit more, and just add some of this textury stuff that's on the bark. This is really shadowed in here, but we will add some in there and then float or wash over that later. Let's go over here and add some. Just all over this tree bark, or this tree trunk. We're adding this fun textury stuff on here. Interesting stuff. It's very, very interesting. And this should go pretty quickly because I don't want you to think too hard about it. I just want you to tap some in there. Just tap some in. Now we're going to have down through here is going to be a little bit different because, you know, where that tree trunk broke off, it peeled off some of this. So I'm just going to pull some of this gray down through there. I'm going to go ahead and put some of this up in here. Just kind of dry brushing it in. A little bit more black in there. And we'll just put a little bit up in there and start creating some stuff up there. Add a little bit more warm white and go back to a little bit of that lighter gray. Or it's a medium to dark gray, okay? It's not a light gray, so I don't want to okay, this kind of comes down this way quite a ways and over this way. And just give some little taps in here. Some little texture. I'm just using what's left in my brush, kind of moving it around throughout the background. And we can come back in with some black if we get too much of this. Down here it's going to be a little darker. We're going to have some light stuff all up in here. Darker through there. Okay, that looks really good. Let me stop my tray from spinning. So we've got a really good start onto our tree already. I am loving it. I'm going to put a little bit heavier just through here. Just right through there. I feel like it needs a little bit, tiny bit more of the white in there. Okay, so we're going to go with that for our first layer. So I hope you're really seeing that tree trunk. It's going to be coming to life so great. It's going to be so great. All right, so I am going to go ahead and wash this brush out. I might need to use it again, but this particular brush dries fairly quickly. You can also clean it out with just some hand sanitizer. Wipe the excess paint. I'll just show you how I do that. I'm going to wipe the excess paint out of my brush first. Squeeze it out and rub it out because we use this dry. So paint likes to hang into dry brushes a lot. So, all right, I put some hand sanitizer out here, so I'm going to grab a little bit in my brush and work that paint out. And go to my dry paper towel and just work it out, squeeze it out. get it out. We're going to do the hand sanitizer again. You might have to do this several times depending on how much paint is still in your brush after you initially remove the paint before you put hand sanitizer on it. Okay, I think one more time ought to clean it enough so that when I am ready to use it again, see, there's not much paint left in it now. Oops. Not much paint left in it now, so I'll squeeze that paint out. I'm just squeezing it. I'm trying not to pull on the bristles. Just squeezing it out and then rub it. Okay, so I believe I got quite a bit of that paint out. Okay, so this is ready for me to use again. That hand sanitizer will dry very quickly in there. Now when you are done painting, you want to make sure that you wash that brush so that the hand sanitizer doesn't dry out the bristles on it. Okay, I brought this kind of dry brush down about 3 inches below this knot. Now obviously if you're working on a smaller canvas it won't be quite that far, but that's about how far I brought mine down. So I'm going to take my round brush now, my 2 round that I used earlier, and make some of that gray. I think I'll add a little bit more of the warm white in there to lighten it just a little bit. Get some of that moisture out of my brush. Now you can go to a smaller brush to do all this as well. I think I might mix a little bit of blue in there. And we'll put some blue color on this tree. Just a little tapping. Just wherever. Now you can continue to use the stiff brush if you want. I'm going to dry brush some of this in a couple of places. Use my finger, kind of settle it in there. And we're just going to tap some of this blue mixture on our tree and create some. It's your tree, so just have fun with it and be a little bit creative with how it looks. Grab a little bit of water on my brush. Alright, so here we go. I'm just going to continue this all over my tree. Again, if I feel like I get too much right now, it seems extremely bright. But I can come back in and wash over this with some black and get it all settled in there. We do need, get a little bit of that dark gray. We do need some, well, that's not dark enough, so let me grab a little bit more black. Some of this over here along this edge. And really just texture, texture, texture. That's what we're doing. Okay? We're going to, you know, come back and push all this stuff back. So I know it looks bright. It's on top right now, and it just looks extremely bright. Let's put some little streaky lines through here. All this stuff is going to fade into the back of the tree. Okay? Decorative painting, it is a layering effect. So loose is good. Okay. Continue all the way down. A little texture. I'm going to mix some more of the blue, black, gray. So that's black, white, or warm white, and the phthalo blue. A little bit more warm white in there. Like I said, you can go back and do this with the texture brush, which I might grab that one and or a different one and do some texturing, because I want it to be a little bit more controlled on here. So I'm just going to continue with this brush along here until I'm done, and then I'll grab my other brush. Let's put some blue streaky stuff in here. I just put a little bit of water in my brush, so all the stuff that I'm putting down here will be a little bit thinner. If you've got a worn out small brush, it would work great for doing this stuff. Put some of this bluer stuff up here and along this edge. Okay, and then just continue up your tree. It's almost like this mossy stuff that has grown all over this tree. I think I need to make it more shaped over here. So I like how it's looking over here on this tree a lot more. So I'm getting a little bit more loose with my brush now, so it's creating a lot more fun textury stuff. So much fun. I'm just going to drag some through the tree a little bit. I want quite a bit coming down to that knot. And I'm going to put a little bit of this sort of texture and dry brush dragging here. A little bit bigger here. I'm going to go back over to here and try and create a little bit. I'm going to have to mix a little bit more here. Black, warm white, phthalo blue, a little more warm white, a little more black. Too much in my brush, clean it out and go back. That needs more white. Lighten it up. I think I'm going to put a little bit of black in it to darken it. Okay, had to take a quick break, but I am back. All right, so we did our mix that was this more blue color on here. So before we move on to adding any more light colors on there, I want to go back into my black and do some of this color and add some dark here and there. We definitely need some dark stuff in here. And again, you can just tap some in and scoot it around your tree. We're going to be doing some shading on here in just a minute. I just want to create some darker areas. It's starting to look like an old tree now. I'm going to shade along this edge. These places that are a little bit bigger, we want to put some dark stuff in them. And I keep adding a little bit of water to my paint to keep it thin and flowy. Alright, let's go over here to this one. While I have this brush, I'm going to start creating some little cracks within this area right here. Just kind of keep it up on the tip of the brush and create some stuff going on here. Let's put some stuff down here, and we'll just kind of drag some of this darker color through here. Want a little bit of a almost crack in the knot right through here. And we'll put some little lines in here. Now you can go to a small detail brush for all of this part if you want to. And just add some little line stuff. I mean, there's little textury lines all in this knot here. Some down through here. Alright, now I'm going to go back to tapping some of this black in here and there. And this kind of breaks up that blue that's in here. Okay. Take a little bit more black. We want some black kind of loosely up through here, creating a little bit of a thick bark texture along the top of this knot. We'll let it kind of fade away there, and we're going to shade on this side on that tree, and shade on that. Create a little bit bigger stuff going on down here. Okay, it's looking pretty good. Let's put some, break that up a little bit. So the black is just going to break up some of our blue and gray that we put on our tree. It's looking very mossy, but the mossy stuff is in the shadow, so it's looking really, really good. We're going to start doing some floating on our tree now, and while we have our round brush out, and this is where you might want to go to a detail liner. We're going to thin some more black here, and add some of our limbs on here. It's coming from the back of the tree back here. And we're going to bring it up. Coming up here. We'll have a leaf coming off right there. And then we're going to have a little bit, we're going to add some green onto this, but we're going to just start the look of some of our branches. So I'm going to keep these thin because I do want to add some green stuff on here, and so super thin. So if you need a detail liner, grab one. We're keeping thin paint here, nothing thick and anything like that. We want to keep this just really thin. We're going to have one coming off of the tree here. There is kind of a knotty area, not knotty, but knot area right here, but it's kind of in the shadows. So we're going to have a little limb thing coming off of that. And we'll pull that out a little bit with our finger. We'll have one here, but again, I want to add some green to it, so this is just kind of placement here. And that's really thick, so let me take that back. Stay up on the very tip of your brush. That's going to get some great stuff going on here. And then we have one that's coming from the back of the tree, almost right here off the side, but a little bit towards the back. And we're going to bring this over this way and a little bit, bring a branch down here. And I think we're going to bring one down here. Let's bring one that's coming off up here. And we'll have some stuff coming here. And let's bring one from up here, and it can have some little branches coming off of it here and there. And I think that's going to be good for our branches. We're going to also have one that's coming across this way, but we're going to do that with some other colors here in a minute. I want to work on getting the shading on our tree done next. Right, are you ready to start some shading on this tree? I'm going to go with a 12 flat. You can go with an angle brush. Whatever brush is going to work for you. Just grab that brush. My brushes are recommendations. They're the ones I like to use, but everyone has their favorite brushes. My brushes are all Dynasty brushes, and I do sell a few of those on my website. Not this particular brand that I'm using here. This is the Black Gold series. I sell the Black Silver series. But you can get these at the Brush Guys. Okay, so we are going to side load some of our black onto whatever brush you like to float with. So my brush is loaded with water. Lay it on your paper towel to wick out the excess, but not all of the water, and then side load into some black. Work it into the edge of your brush. Touch your paper towel to remove excess paint from the tip of the brush, and we are going to float along here. And this tree kind of juts, or this, I don't want to say separate tree, but this part of the tree kind of juts out right there, which I'm not sure I made that jut out enough. So let's remove some of that. I want to bring this out right here. And bring it out a little bit right there, like another little big knot is on that edge of the tree. We're going to come all the way up the edge of this tree right here. I picked up a drop of water on the water edge and paint on this edge. Blend, 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 work them into your brush. This is a little bit of a knotty area there, kind of pushed out where that limb is. And we're going to work this all the way up our tree. And then I'm going to walk it over on this tree, which means because I've already laid the water down, I can move my paint over into that water area and darken that edge. And we're creating a nice shadow on that edge of the tree. Now look how that already looks amazing. I'm going to bring this over into the tree a little bit more up here. Okay, so we definitely have a light side on this tree. I want it a little bit darker down here. A little bit more of a shadow down there. We'll do some shading down at the bottom here as well. So I'm going to reload. So pick up water, pick up paint, blend, blend, blend. Okay, so I want to reshape this right here, and I'm going to take it in and then back out right there. Give that tree a little bit more appeal. All right, so we're going to shade along this edge of the tree. Walk it over a little bit. Grab my paint and some water, blend, blend, blend up this edge. A little bit of a knot right there where that is. And we're going to walk it over just a little bit. More paint. And I'm running out of water, so I'm going to go grab some water and some paint, blend, 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 and all the way up to the top. Walk it over a little bit, and we're creating a shadow edge on that side. Now this shadow needs to come farther onto this tree, so I'm going to reload water and paint. So I dip my brush in the water so it's full of water, touch my paper towel, and then load paint on the one corner. And so now we are working this in. And we want this darker all the way, not all the way, but you know, over half of the way across this tree. This tree is really in the dark side, so it was kind of a thin layer of that black, so I can still see some of that other stuff underneath, which is good. Alright, so now we want to work on our knot. So I washed my brush out. I'm just going to go right here where I have some paint and work that into my brush, so it is kind of a sheer color of black. And we're going to begin just laying this in through here. Down through here. We're going to put some of this down in this area, just choppily down through here. Put a little bit more down in that knot. That's all going to get some highlight there. We want this to look rounded. We're going to shade next to our edge here. And kind of push that knot behind the bark a little bit. I'm going to go here a little bit, define that knot a little bit right there. There's not really shading down here. This all just kind of blends together. So just very, very choppily, just add some black through there. And then we're going to add some highlights on here. So that is looking really good. So all we used was our black, you know, kept it loose and a little bit thin on there. I can still see my stuff that's on the tree here. Now if you want to bring some of it out, you can take that darker gray and, you know, pull some of it more back to the forefront. But I like mine. I think it looks great. All right, we're going to highlight a little bit on here. I'm going to go back to my round brush. I want to create a mix of phthalo blue. I've got phthalo blue. I've got titanium white this time. And we're going to add a little bit of carbon black in there. A little bit more white. A little more white. I want this to be a light blue-gray. So just keep mixing it until you get a nice light blue-gray color. I'll wash my brush out. It's got tons of paint in it. A little bit more white in there. You can again use warm white, whatever color you like. There are just a few places that I want to brighten up over here. A little bit more white in there. This is our brightest highlight, so I want it to be a little bit brighter. So I'm just going to add some of this, tapping it and kind of dragging it through here just a little bit. creating some brighter areas on the side of the tree here. And we can put just a little bit here and there. Don't get too wild with this because this is a bright, bright color. And I'm going to add a tiny little bit more white in there. And just add a little bit of this. Goes a long way for a highlight, okay? We're going to continue on this other tree and add a few little highlights on here. I might come back in with some of my gray color and put some of that back in there. I feel like I lost a lot of my textury stuff. We want to put some here, but remember on this edge we're going to keep it really textury and organic, and not we're going to be loose and just kind of tapping it in there. We're not adding tons of detail here. This is just all super fine stuff. Put a little bit down through here and up along here. Smooth it back with your finger, a little bit through here. So we're just creating some little highlights there. I'm going to do a little bit, or a lot. Let me wipe my brush out. A little bit more white in there. And again, we're going to do a little bit along this edge. This is just kind of dry brush. And this knotty area here. And a little bit next to some of these black lines we put in, and then a little bit out here in our areas that we created out on our tree. So just a little bit. We're going to go up this edge, and anytime you get too bright, just go in and ooh, that's really bright. I'm going to add some black into some of this and create that little bit of darker gray stuff. I want to put a little bit back in through here where I brought my float over, and it got just a little bit farther over than on what I wanted. Just a little bit of that back in there. Some of that textury stuff. I feel like we lost just a little bit too much of it. And this is just that blue-gray mix. This is where you play around, look at your tree, stand back, take a look at it, take a photo of it. All these things are going to help you see where you need to add some color, some texture, all that stuff. Okay, I think a little bit through here of this gray color. I don't have much left in my brush, so it's leaving just small amounts, just enough to create that subtle little texture stuff in there. I think I want a little bit more of the blue down through here and on my knot. I like that blue on there a lot, that blue-gray mix. It's very pretty on there. Put a little bit more up here. Okay, so that looks pretty good for our knot, I'm thinking. Go back into that gray color and bring a little bit over here. Right here, is that where I want it? Yeah, right through here somewhere is where I'm going to put that limb that's coming off of the tree. So I want a little area where it looks like it's coming from. So I think we're looking pretty good here. pretty good. I like the color values, the color change, the texture on the tree. I'm really, really liking that. I think I might float a little bit more of the black just right along this edge and smooth that out. Make sure I've got a smooth transition there. Okay, I'm going to take some of this black and put it along the bottom down here and make sure that's in the shadows. I'm also going to go to this tree right here, and even though it's pushed back to the background, I want to put just a little bit of black along that edge. Okay? Just darken it just a little bit. Give it that little bit of shadow, okay? It's back there, but, you know, we want it to really be back there. Okay, let me grab some of that blue, add it to my black. More black. This is where you play around and look at your depth and see if it is how you want it to look. Streak a little black in there, break that up. It's too solid of a line, did not like that. And I'm going to break this up a little bit here with some texture. Okay, just a little bit of, that's the gray-blue mix. Let's break it up. We're still shaded on that side. And I think it's looking pretty good. Blue here. Okay, that's looking pretty good. Of course, you can add more texture-y stuff. A little more black here. And this bark down here. Okay, I'm thinking the tree looks pretty darn good. I'm liking that. So I think I'm going to call the tree pretty done. The trunks anyway. And we're going to get ready to add on our bright leaves that are really going to set this off. Okay, before I move on to painting our leaves in, I'm going to take a little bit of black on my scruffy brush, this little scruffy brush, which is clean because I cleaned it with hand sanitizer. And I've got some areas back in here I want to break up a little bit more and put a little bit more shadowy, textury type stuff in there. I can come back with my lighter colors if I need to, but it needed a little bit more darker stuff going on in just a few places. Creating that. This is just some black. Now I can mix some blue in with it. Don't worry about where your leaves are. I'm going to tap a little bit back in here. Just kind of break some stuff up. Create a little bit of texture. So once you've got this done, we're going to base in our leaves very loosely with some yellow and warm white mix. Okay, just break up some of that back in there. Over here it looks really, really good. I really like how this side looks and how it looks back in there. But this side just needs a little. Breaking up of some of these colors in here. Alright, I think that looks pretty good. I'm not going to play around with it too much. I just noticed that a couple of areas needed some of that dark color put back in. So I'm done with this brush unless I want to come back in and add some more highlights in there later. But for now, I'm pretty much done with it. So I want you to take a round brush or a filbert brush, whatever works best for you. Let's see what I can find here. I'll try a filbert brush. If it doesn't work out, I'll go into a bigger round brush, like a 3 round. So one of these two brushes will be good for basing in our leaves. We want to keep it a little bit loose, textury. We have 2 leaves that will be gray, and all the rest of them we're going to give this mixture of the yellow and white, warm white and yellow. We've got this leaf and this leaf right here that are going to be gray. So I'm going to go ahead and mix a gray color for this. I'm going to add just a little bit of blue in there. So we'll make a medium to dark value gray here with some blue in it. So it's going to be that blue-gray, and we're just going to very loosely, this is the way we're going to put them all in. I don't want you to be too caught up in their shape. Right now we're just putting in a few leaves. Just scumbling them in kind of just very, very loosely. So those are the 2 that will be done with that gray-blue mix, which is carbon black, phthalo blue, and titanium white. Okay, all the rest of them we are going to do warm white and yellow mixed together. The Hansa yellow medium. And this is just going to be an undercoat for these. And there was some blue or something in that yellow, so let me remix that because I don't want that blue in my yellow. It was a little bit of blue was in my warm white, so I'm going to mix quite a little bit right here, and then wipe the excess off my brush. And we're just going to very, very, very loosely tap some of this color in. We don't have to fill in the entire leaf because we're going to be adding other colors. So we're just kind of creating where these will be. So I'll just go off camera and do all of these leaves. We're going to be adding oranges and reds on here. But right now we're just kind of determining, I guess I should say, where our leaves are, just by adding this rough little coat of paint here. And like I said, some of these are going to end up being orange. They're going to be gorgeous. We're going to have some burgundy in here, so it is going to be some gorgeous leaves. So I'm going to go off camera and finish this, and you do yours, and we'll come back. I'm not going to worry about going over the limbs that we put in there because we can add those back in as we develop all of these beautiful leaves on here. So just put them in a rough little layer of paint, not even solid, because some of these we want to have some holes kind of peeking through. So we might remove a little bit of that paint that we just put on there. So we don't want anything too overly opaque here. Okay, so we're going to do that, and I'm going to get all of the other leaves done the same way, and then we're going to come back and start adding some beautiful color on here. Okay, you ready to add some color to these leaves? So we're going to put some colors out on our palette. I'm not really sure what all colors I'm going to be using, but I want some more yellow out, which is the Hansa Yellow Light. No, Hansa Yellow Medium, but you could use Hansa Yellow Light. That would be perfect for this if you have it. I'm going to put some raw sienna out. These colors, I'm not really sure all the colors I'm going to be using, but I'm going to put some of each of these colors out. So a little bit of red violet. Don't know if I'm going to use that one. I've got Naphthol Red and Naphthol Red Light. I'll show you the difference between the two of them. So this is Naphthol Red Light and this is Naphthol Red. So you can see the Naphthol Red Light has a little bit of an orange tint to it. So I'm going to put both out, and some vermilion. Again, I'm not sure what colors I'm going to be using. Oh, goodness. And you'll also want some titanium white out, and then I have some burgundy. The burgundy and the red violet are very different. I probably may lean more to the red violet on this project, but I'm going to put some burgundy out just because I'm not really sure what colors I'm going to be using. And then I'm going to add some more white out. That titanium white. Alright, so let's grab a brush here. Again, I want to be loose and organic and try not to really make these dark opaque. I mean, some of them need to be dark, but I want some places where, you know, like there's a hole in the leaf and we can see through it a little bit. So let's just start with one of our leaves. I'm going to take our yellow and I'm thinning it down with a little bit of water. So I'm going to get some of the moisture off my ferrule here. My ferrule is very wet. And we're going to start on this big leaf right here. I'm going to put some of this bright yellow on this leaf. Now that yellow that we had underneath, I did not completely fill the leaf so that we can have a little bit of variation of color in here. I'm not going to clean my brush off. I'm going to go into the Naphthol Red Light and grab a little bit of that. I'm going to wipe that off. Let me get some water on my palette here. Use my little misting bottle, spritz some water on there so I can thin my paint down. I want a little bit more flowy consistency here. More water. And just move this paint around. And wipe my brush off. It's best if you can work one leaf at a time and go wet on wet and really create some beautiful blended colors here. So I'm going to grab some of the red, the Naphthol Red. You can see the difference between the two. I'm going to wash my brush now and grab a little bit more of that yellow. And this leaf, let's see, I'm not sure which one. I'm going to have this one over here be on top of this one, so I'm going to go and blend a little bit of this. I picked up a little bit of that red in my yellow, so I just cleaned my brush off. And we've got a nice, beautiful leaf started right there. Okay, so we're going to continue around all of our leaves. I'm going to show you how to do a few. I'm going to go into my burgundy now. I think, actually that's not the burgundy, that's the red violet. I'm going to see what the burgundy looks like. I think I'm going to prefer the burgundy over the violet, so I've thinned some down with some water, and we're just going to put a little bit of this on here. Wipe my brush off, and then just blend that. I want this whole leaf right here to be burgundy. I'm going to add a tiny little bit of black in there. to darken that burgundy so we can have a little bit of some shadow stuff going on here, or darker areas in this leaf, and give that leaf a little bit of color variance. Okay, I'm going to continue with this dark burgundy into this leaf right here, and actually this leaf comes over here, and we're going to create a dark edge on this one, and I'm going to bring it up this side a little bit, and a little bit here on this edge that's going over this leaf right here. Okay, I'm going to wipe my brush off, grab some water from the water drops that are on my palette, and now I'm going to grab some, let's see, I think I'll grab the Naphtha Red Light on this one, put some in there. I'm actually going to wash my brush and then take some water and begin to blend. Blend this out. I want to work wet on wet, so work a little bit quickly. I'm going to grab a little bit of yellow and put a little dab of yellow in here. And look how gorgeous this leaf is looking. Oh my gosh, you guys. So pretty. Let's see if we want to add some of that red violet in here. I think it might add a little pop of color on this edge that I'm looking for. And a little bit of the yellow back in here. And a little bit of the red, Naphtha Red Light. Okay, and this leaf kind of goes underneath that one. So that's a really bold leaf. I like that. I'm going to wash my brush. I'm going to go to the, I'm going to see if the vermilion's going to work. I'm not sure the vermilion's going to be the color that I want in some of these leaves. So I'm going to put a little bit on the edge. I'm going to wash my brush and go into a little bit of, tiny little bit of raw sienna. A little bit in that leaf. Zoom in on this one. And then we're going to go into some yellow. And we want to try and blend. So wet on wet, and the Traditions has a little bit more open time than the Americana acrylics. So you get a little bit more blending time in there. I'm going to add a little bit of Naphtha Red on here in these areas where I put the orange, because I want a little more red in that leaf. Okay. Alright, we're going to move to this leaf right here. Okay, I'm going to first paint in a little bit of the Hansa Yellow medium, go into some raw sienna, and put some of that here, and along the edge of this leaf here. This is raw sienna. I first started with the Naphtha, or the Hansa Yellow medium, and now we're going to go into some either Naphtha Red Light or Naphtha Red, whichever one you prefer. And we're going to put some of this in here and touch it here and there onto our leaf, and then we are going to blend this. Alright, I just put it in a few places. Looks crazy. Washed my brush. Now I'm just taking the water that's in my brush, and as I lift paint from this leaf, I am wiping my brush off on my paper towel so my leaf doesn't just become a big red leaf. So that leaf has a lot of beautiful color going on in it. I love that. We'll be adding some thin little veins in here when we're done. So I'm going to continue around my entire project just picking up these colors. Naphtha Red Light, mostly in this one, wipe my brush and grab a little bit of yellow and let that blend with that Naphthol red there. Wipe my brush off a little more yellow and make it a little brighter right there on that edge. How gorgeous is that? Oh my gosh, you guys. And again, in some areas like this place is dark right here and I left it dark up there. Those can be like little holes in your leaves. So try not to cover those up. Try to keep them, you know, little areas where you can see a little, like that's a little hole in the leaf. I like that, so I'm going to keep it a little hole in the leaf. Right now I'm just using the violet red. Let's see, what color is that? Red violet. There we go. I'm going to pick up a little bit of phthalo. That's going to add a little blue purple into that leaf, maybe a little bit too much purple. So I'll go back into some of the violet, and this will darken this edge a little bit. Okay, I'm going to wash my brush out and grab a little bit more of the, this is the red violet. I used some burgundy on that one up there, but I really like the red violet a little bit more. So a little bit of that phthalo blue mixed in there, and we'll just add some darker edges on here and create a little bit of rough stuff going on that particular leaf right there. Alright, I'm going to go into my Naphthol red light and go up here to this one and then wash my brush out and go into some raw sienna. Then wash my brush out and grab a little bit of, I'm going to go into the burgundy. It's a little bit darker. And there we go. A little bit of texture in that leaf. Looks gorgeous. I am loving these leaves. Alright, I'm going to go back into my bright yellow. Let's add a bright one in here. And this one I need to get a little more definition on the leaf here. And then let's do the Naphthol red light in here. Wipe my brush off, a little bit of raw sienna, and now I'm going to wash my brush because I want to blend all of this out. Gorgeous leaf. Love the varying of colors. So this is what I want you to do for all of your leaves. I'm going to do a couple more and then I'm going to go off camera because I just want you to vary your colors. This is the raw sienna. I'm going to leave a little hole in the leaf there. I'm going to go into the Naphthol red light. This is red light. It's got a little bit more orange into it. And some yellow and some raw sienna on my brush. Keep that hole there. Okay, I want more of the yellow and a little bit of burgundy. Just put a little bit in there, wipe my brush off. And now all my paint is wet here, so I can really manipulate the paint and gently blend it all together. I think I'm going to go into some red and add a little bit of red in there. And put some red. Brighten that up just a little bit. And after this completely dries, we'll erase all of our chalk lines or graphite lines, and then we'll come back and do a little bit of tweaking with the colors, some washes, some glazes. It's all going to be beautiful. When we get done, those leaves are all going to just pop, pop, pop right off of the canvas. So, so far I used a little bit of vermilion up there, but I haven't used it too much yet. So this one is the Naphthol Red Light. I might grab a little bit of Naphthol Red and a little bit of raw sienna. And I'm going to wipe my brush off and a little bit of water and blend. Okay, then we have our gray one there that's going to be blue. So raw sienna on this one down here. And wash my brush, Naphthol Red Light, just a little bit, wash it off, a little bit of yellow. This one's kind of in the shadows, so it doesn't have to be super bright. Okay. So pretty. All right, I'm going to finish out these other, there's 3 more leaves right here, but these 3 are done the exact same way. I'll finish out the undercoats of all of these, and then we'll come back and do some tweaking and stuff on these leaves. This one I think I'll make a little bit of red in here. Okay, wipe my brush off. I'm going to go into some yellow, Hansa yellow. And we'll put some of that off. I'm going to wipe my brush off again. Get a little bit more yellow. A little bit of raw sienna right here and out here. Gorgeous. Loving, loving, loving. I'm going to gently blend this a little bit. Alright, 2 more leaves to go. And I'm going to make this one really bright, so we're going to go into our yellow and put that on the entire leaf. I've got a little bit of water in here that is keeping this nice and sheer. And then I'm going to grab a little bit of the Naphthol Red and put a little bit on the edge of the leaf here and right through here and a little bit out here. Okay, I'm going to wash my brush and just very gently blend it with that damp brush. Okay. And that looks good. 1 more leaf to go. Let's add some Naphthol Red Light on here. I'm going to add a little bit of burgundy at this edge. And maybe through there. You just pick where you want to lay in your colors. It's not going to be wrong, okay? We're going to come back and do some tweaking on these leaves, so I don't want you to worry about how the first layer looks, because we are going to add lots of stuff on here. Wipe my brush off, grab a little bit of the lighter yellow, and I'll add it out here, and then very gently go in and blend. Okay, so we've got our base coat on all of our leaves out here on this side, okay? Alright, so I'm going to go do these last 3 off camera because they're done the same way. You're just picking up random colors that you like and plugging them in where you want to see them, okay? Right, before we do some more to our leaves here, I want to add a little bit of like tree limb stuff back in here. I need to clean my water basin out. It is very, very dirty. So I just want to tuck some of this stuff back in here. Kind of lost a little bit of it. Stroke it in there and tap it back with your finger. We want to see a little bit of this in here, but we still want it to be subtle, not something that we can, that really, you know, is too much forward. This is still back stuff. But I lost quite a bit of it, and so let's just put some back in there. Okay. Alright, that looks pretty good. Okay, let's finish our leaves here. We're going to put a second layer on these leaves and make them a little more bold. I definitely want to use more washes of color here. You can see these over here. I made more red. So I want more brightness on these. So for this one here, I'm going to take some of the red violet, and when I create a wash, I'm just going to make a thin layer of paint here, mostly water, a little bit of paint, your tinting water basically, and put this on our leaf here and brighten up our leaves. I want some of this on this one as well. And this one down here, I'm going to do the whole leaf with this color. And I'm going to move quickly because I want to do these while they're still wet. Now I'm taking some Naphthol red and putting some of this on this one. And okay, it's really helping these leaves to pop a lot. Okay, this one still looks like it needs to be a little brighter. So I'm going to add a little bit of burgundy to that wash. And maybe just a tiny bit of yellow in there. Let's lighten up a little bit. Okay, that looks a little better. All right, so you're just going to go on each leaf and create a wash of your colors. So when you're doing like yellow, be sure and use your clean water to thin it so that you are not contaminating the color. So I'm just going to get some washes made of all these colors that I want to use, and that way I can just go from color to color. And let me make a wash of my raw sienna. So I've got all my colors here. I've got raw sienna, I've got my Naphthol yellow, or Hansa yellow medium, my red violet. This is Naphthol red light, that's Naphthol red, and that is the burgundy. I never did use the vermilion. I used a little bit on here, but I'm not going to keep it on the palette list because I just used it in a couple of places, and it's not worth having the color, you know, since I didn't use it that much. All right, this one I want to be mostly yellow. And a tiny little bit of either Naphthol red light or Naphthol red to brighten it. And that's looking good. Let's go with some raw sienna on this one. Wash out and grab the yellow. Wash out and grab one of the reds. It doesn't matter which one for this one. Alright, back to some of our thinned yellow. Go to this one. And a little bit of a red color. Put some of that red on here. And some of our yellow. Yellow here. And one of the reds, doesn't matter which one, because I don't remember what color I used there, so. And with this this one we're going to do some raw sienna. These leaves are looking amazing. So you see what just a little wash of color is doing to these leaves. It's just brightening up those colors, creating such amazing depth. And this is the yellow. I'm gonna wipe off and go into one of my reds. Yellow and some red. Gorgeous leaves. All right, let's grab some red here and some burgundy. And I think I'll grab some yellow and try and lighten this up just a little bit. I'm going to put some more yellow. Mix a little bit more of a wash. I want some more yellow on this one. Okay, we're looking pretty good. Any of them that you want to brighten up, go ahead and do that. A little bit of burgundy here. Okay, I think I've pretty much brightened all of those. They look fabulous. So let's go over here. This is my Naphthol red I used on this one. So let's just create a little bit of a wash of that color. Naphthol red. And then I used a little bit of burgundy. I'll just grab that and put that wash on there. Put some here. Some yellow. Bit of red, and that's going to make a little orange there, so that's pretty. Alright, we're going to go back into, this is our Naphthol red, or Naphthol red light is what I used on this one, and a little bit of burgundy. Kept this one pretty red, so that looks pretty good. Alright, I think those look really, really good. Excuse me. My goodness. Let's add some blue on here. Oh my gosh. So phthalo blue is what we're going to use. A little bit of white. Let's see. Yeah, I just want phthalo blue and white. I don't know if I want to add a little tiny bit of the black in there or not. We can try it. Let me wipe my brush off. And we're going to just rough in on this one. I am going to add a little bit of black, or a lot of black in there. And add some of this in and try and blend all these colors together. I really like that blue in there, so I want to definitely work that into that leaf. We're going to do the same to this one here. Add some of that blue just right through here. I'm going to wipe off and then get the gray, the blue-gray mixture, and tap that in. And that's some nice color on those right there. That looks really good. We'll definitely add some shading on there to darken those. These are looking really good. We're going to go back in and add our stems in a minute, but let's create just a few veins in ours. And I think with that one I will go down to a fine detail brush. This one has a wild hair on it, so I don't think I'm going to be able to use that one. be too tiny. Alright, so on some of these, our veins are just subtle in there. So we're going to take our thinned paint. I'm going to create some more thinned colors here that I can use with my little liner brush here. So thin them all down. I probably won't need the bright yellow, but we're going to add some veins in here. Okay, let's add our veins in here. So I'm going to take like an orange mix, so just grab some of your colors and we're going to create some veins in here. Maybe. I've got raw sienna. It's not showing up very well, so I'm going to add a little bit of burgundy in there and see if that will show up. Not showing up. So let's go to some of our reds and mix that in with our raw sienna. Okay, so just subtle little lines. We don't want tons of detail here. I'm gonna have to get a different brush because this one is not holding enough paint. The other one, the bristles were bent on it, so let me grab another brush and thin some of my paint down and make a nice fat line. We don't want a fat line. There we go. And just give a little hint of a vein here and there. These are super incredibly thin. Touch back with your finger and that's going to, I'm going to take them down a little bit, just a little. Ooh, that's very bright. All right. Just keep it loose. And there's two leaves here. That's super thick and dark there. This one I can't see. Go to some darker color here. This leaf is going to create it that way and let it go up that direction. Okay, I've already done that one. Okay, just keep them fairly thin. Let's not, can't see these, so I'm going to have to redo them. Had too much water in my brush, so they faded back in there quite a bit. Okay, super subtle. We're going to do these darker ones here in just a second, and the gray ones, but right now I'm just working on all of these other ones. I'm using mostly burgundy. I'm going to add a tiny little bit of black to it now, or some blue to create a purple. And we'll create some veins in that one. And this one up here. So this is the burgundy with a little bit of black in it. Do a little bit more black for this one here. we're just seeing a few veins. We're not seeing all of them or tons of detail. Don't try to make it too complicated. Okay, now for this one here, I'm just going to go ahead and use that mix that I had on my brush, that black and burgundy mix, because it's mostly black and it will be just fine for these leaves. Okay, so now we need to start creating some vein or some stems on here. So for the gray one here, we want to we're going to come back in and highlight these leaves and put a little brighter highlight on these, but we want to get our stems on here. So we're going to take our black and white. I'm still going to use this detail brush, and we're going to make a lighter gray color, something that we can see over that tree. And that one's going to go there, so let's grab some black. Bring my brush off and I'll try that again. Grab some black and I'm going to go along the bottom of that, a little bit darker in here. This is the black, just straight black. Okay. While we're on that one, I'll just go ahead and add some white. Just kind of drag some white highlight on here. Just with this detail brush, but you can certainly go to a small round and do all of this. I'm going in between my veins here. A little bit on this side as well. Okay. And we'll go and do a little bit on this one, just a little bit here, out here on the outer edge. Okay, and a little bit out here, just a little. This is just a little bit of something going on there, okay? I think we're going to shade on those and darken them a little bit. Okay, let's go back to our other ones. I cannot see the vein on this one, so I'm going to take some black and put that in there, maybe. Okay. Okay, let's work on our stems. So I'm going to go back to my small round brush, which is the 2. You can grab a 1 round, that would be just fine. And I'm going to take my black and a little bit of water to thin it. Okay, so this one I want it to go over this leaf right here. Okay, so I'm going to bring it up and over and push that leaf behind. Okay, and then right here we'll bring this one over as well. Okay, so down here on our limbs down here, let's see, where are our limbs? I can't even see where they were connected to the tree. I kind of need it to be connected down here. And we're going to go across. That's a little wide, so let's grab a brush and thin that just a little bit right there. We need it wider where it comes from the tree. That part can be wider. And Then we're going to take this over here and bring it to this one and bring it down here. And I'm going to grab some of my green, I think, my teal green. I'm going to add a little bit of yellow to it, lighten it up a little bit. Add a little bit of black, just a tiny bit, because this one here we're going to bring into that, and then this one goes here. Actually, I want it to, I'll bring it over like this. Not sure I like that. Okay, a little bit too wide right there. Damp brush, let's take that off. I need a little bit of yellow or some white here to highlight. Not really sure which one of those is the vein. Looks like I have two there. Hard to see them. We'll just bring it down like that. How's that? A little bit, just a tiny bit of highlight on here. Here. Alright, let's bring some stuff into that. And then we're going to work this here. A little bit of green on there. Okay, we're going to go back into our black, thinned black, so we can create some stuff over here. I'm going to add a tiny bit of green to the mix. And then go back into the black, because it definitely needs to be dark down here next to the tree. And then this one, we can bring some black into there for a little bit of a darker I don't want any leaf to look like it is just floating out here on its own. So okay, I think those look pretty good. Pretty good. You just have to decide. I think actually I'm going to take this one over that leaf and bring that over and push that leaf to the back. So I think that will make that a little bit brighter. Okay, let me grab a little bit of yellow so I can put a little highlight here. Just a touch of a highlight. Nothing super big or powerful. Then we're going to shade on those gray leaves, and we're going to shade to separate a few of these other leaves. We're going to do that with some soft mix of carbon black and phthalo blue. Okay, let's separate some of our leaves and shade on these gray ones. So we're going to use a very sheer wash or float of black, a little bit more paint, So I'm working it into my brush with a little bit of water, so it's going to keep it a nice solid color. It won't take over the leaf this way. So we'll add a little bit of this out here. And we'll put a little bit back here. We don't want it so dark that it blends in with the tree. So if you're afraid it's getting too dark, then just add a little bit of blue in there. Maybe add a little bit of white to make it more gray. So on this one, I'm just putting a little bit, like right next to where the limb comes over that leaf, pushes it back a little bit more. And we're going to do that to all of our leaves that have something laying over it or in front of it. So this leaf right here is behind, I'm going to use the black for all of them, is behind this one. So I want to create a little float that's pretty dark. Let me grab a little more water and blend that a little bit more in my brush. Okay, and right here, this one, definitely need more paint. Took off too much paint off of my brush. Load it, touch your paper towel. I'm just using a flat brush, but I'm keeping it kind of tilted up, so I'm not laying it completely flat like I would normally for a float. I'm keeping it tilted up a little bit, and we're just creating some shadow here. Okay, so this one, you could use like the deep burgundy in here as well. If you can't, if the black is too harsh, you can add some burgundy in there. I'm going to shade right here next to that one. And the back of this one, I think. And I want to separate those. I want to pull one forward, so I need a little bit of dark color on each side of that. Okay, so just see where one leaf is over another, or maybe creating a shadow on one because it's so close. Give it a little bit more depth. If you want a little bit darker side to one of your leaves, then a little bit of this on there will help. Let's put a little shading on here. I have such a small amount of paint on my brush, but it is creating a nice little float of color. It's a black. There is a tiny bit of burgundy still in my brush, but not enough that it's extremely noticeable. Alright, this one here I missed. Let's do it. Right next to that stem that's going over it, we need a vein on this one. Something coming off of it to let us know that it's not just floating out there on its own. A little dark, add a little bit of a highlight on there. The only thing with the black, so you might want to go into the burgundy, is that when you put it over yellow, it can turn it a little green, but that's okay. You know, these are fall leaves. Let's not worry too much about that. I'm going to put some on this one because I want it to be a little bit darker. this edge to be a little bit darker, so I'm just doing that little wash of black that's in my brush. It's just a tiny little bit of paint, plenty of water, so we're creating a nice might do that one with some burgundy. So let me get a little burgundy on my brush, and we'll try that with some burgundy. Okay, that's looking better. And a little bit of dark stuff here. This is burgundy and black mixed together. Okay, those are looking really good. So basically all we need to do now is create a little bit of a highlight. A little bit of a shadow in here. So we want to create a little bit of a highlight on a few of our leaves. And make sure the leaves that I want pushed to the back are pushed to the back. Okay? So now we're going to create a little bit of a highlight on some of these leaves, mostly the brighter ones. So we're going to take our yellow and some white and mix them together. It's going to be mostly white, just a tiny little tint of yellow. Okay, and we're going to just add a little highlight here and there within our leaves. Just a kiss of some sunlight, you know, maybe out on an edge. Something's getting a little bit of reflected light on it. We need to have this on here. I've just got a side load of white. And creating a little bit of highlight on our leaves. And you don't have to do them all, just do a few, just random places. Wherever you think there's going to be a highlight. And we want mostly white with just a tiny bit of yellow, okay? Take that water edge and blend it out. Just a little edge here or there. Okay, wherever you think a little bit of light is kissing a leaf, because these leaves are all in the sunlight, but they're going to pick up a little bit of light, a little bit of brighter light somewhere. Wipe a little bit of paint off because I want a little bit of highlight there and maybe a little bit right there. So just kiss that sun right on there. I'm going to highlight here and a little bit here. Okay. How fun is that? Let's go over here and do a little bit of highlight on these. They're not going to have as much, but they will have a little bit. And then up here on this one, these are a little bit more in the shadow, so we don't have to do too much to these. Just a little touch of highlight. A little tiny bit more white. This one needs a little more. And just go back in and brighten any place that you feel needs just that extra kiss of highlight. These look amazing. So fun. We're going to zoom out here in a second and take a look. And see how they look together. This one doesn't really have a whole lot of sun hitting it, but we'll give it a little bit more there. Let's wide angle out so we can see it a little bit better. Oh, that looks so good. I love that. Love it, love it, love it. Now this needs more highlight on it. So I'm going to get some just white. And put a little bit of highlight on here. A little bit of white. Highlight mostly on this side here, so. And then this one's got a little bit on this edge. And so we can just make out this one. Alright, any place you want it brighter, just go with straight white and put a little bit, don't cover up all of your yellow, just add a little kiss of something on there. And punch up a couple of highlights. Straight white. I think that looks pretty good. Pretty good. Loving, loving, loving it. Put a little highlight here because that leaf is a little bit more in front, so let's intensify that just a touch. How pretty is this? Just a little kiss here and there. If you get too much, take your color that is the most pronounced in that leaf and just wash over that highlight just a little bit. But I think that is going to finish this project. I absolutely love how this turns out. I love that background's pushed way back there. We've got some subtle, gorgeous stuff going on here in the background, and I know I took a lot of time to show you that background, but it I think was worth it. So there it is. Oh my gosh, what have I titled this? A Glimpse of Fall. That's what I've titled this one, because you're just seeing these bright leaves. Everything else is just pushed away and distant stuff, and we are right here standing next to this gorgeous tree right here. I think I do want to add a little bit of a brighter highlight just right along this edge right here. And brighten that up just a touch. A little more white paint. Just right through here. Okay. And that looks good through there. Yeah, looking good. Push that in there just a little bit brighter right there. And I think we're looking pretty good. Okay, that looks super, super good. I am loving it. A little bit more down here. bit more water in my brush would be helpful. Make my paint a little more flowy. Okay, looking good, looking good. I'm just coming in with a little kiss of a highlight. Now that I have it finished, I can see where a little punch of color needs to go. So this is how you can dress up your highlights on here. All right, that looks fabulous. I want to make sure that that looks like it's pooched out right there, that part of the tree. Maybe another little limb broke off of that. So I think we're looking good. I love it. I absolutely love how this one turned out. A little glimpse of fall, you guys. Traditions paints. You use less paint. You've got such vibrant pigments. So I knew I wanted to use the Traditions paints just so I could punch up those colors and really make them pop. So I hope that you have enjoyed this one. Please leave a comment. Give me a thumbs up, like, and share. It all helps me in my YouTube algorithm, and I appreciate you guys so much. I cannot wait to paint the next one with you. I'll see you on the next one, everybody. Bye-bye.